Here we are back in Adobe Premiere Pro, and I'm going to pick up, assuming that you've already installed the Skybox 360 VR tools. Now, before we hop in, there's one quick change we need to make before we get started with the metal Skybox tools, and that's to change the graphics card setting depending on what you have set up on your system. Let me show you how to change that once we've started our project, and then I'll explain exactly why that is. So just come up to the menu bar. We'll go to File, Project Settings, General. And in here, I have the option to change my graphics card from the aforementioned metal option, and I'm going to change this to OpenCL instead. Now, despite the ironic name of Metal and the company that owns Skybox, also called Metal, these Skybox tools don't currently work well with NVIDIA graphics cards. And the documentation on their website states that they're working on getting this fixed, but at the time of this recording, you do not want to try to use those tools with this particular setting. If you do, it does create some sort of fatal error inside of Premiere Pro, which will ask you to relaunch the application. You'll lose any work that you've done previously, and let's just avoid that nightmare altogether. So to do that, we'll change that from Metal to OpenCL. And for those of you who are using the software-only option, that's fine too. Okay, with that change, we'll go ahead and hit OK. Now, this dialog box may come up from Adobe, just asking me if I want to delete the previous video cache files. And this is totally fine because Adobe is going to regenerate those for me anyway, using the new video card setting. So I'll just click Delete Previews. So what are we looking to change first? Well, let's start with the syntagma square video clip. Now, this shot is pretty cool. It starts out right in the front and center of this beautiful looking building. From there, our viewer can pan left and right and check out the city and all of the landscaping around it. If we toggle the VR monitor button at the bottom, this allows us to reset the camera so we can see exactly where the viewer will start on each particular clip. In other words, if I click this button, I'll see the flattened image again, and then by activating it, what I'm doing is essentially resetting where the camera starts for the viewer. But suppose we wanted our viewer to discover this beautiful building on their own. I mean, after all, this is the best part of the shot, and instead of having it front and center, maybe we should encourage our viewer to discover it on their own. So to do that, I would recommend maybe we start a little more to the right. We'll do a bit of a right offset or a y-axis offset to the right, maybe 45 degrees, and maybe focus more on this bus here, or give a little prelude to what's going on by showcasing these birds right here in front of the building. We can do that using the Skybox tools. So let me get back to the effects panel by clicking on the arrow, going to effects, and inside the effects panel, I can scroll down to video effects, toggle that open, and I'm gonna look for the folder called Metal, M-E-T-T-L-E, there it is, give it a click, and here lies all of our Metal Skybox tools. Now, to change the starting point for our viewer, I'm gonna select the Metal Skybox Rotate Sphere option. So I'll just drag and drop this onto my clip. Now, if I go up to the top left, I'll see in my effects controls for the syntagma square clip, I've officially activated this plugin. To make the modification, I'll go down to the pan y-axis, and I'm going to just toggle it some degrees to the right. Right about there seems good. So now when I turn off the VR monitor and then reactivate it, notice how my camera doesn't begin front and center with the building. Instead, it's off to the side on the right, focused more on that bus and the birds over here on the left. Perfect, just like we wanted it. So now, just to customize our timeline a little better, let's go back to the first one, go back to my effects panel and drag the rotate sphere right onto this clip. And then I'll just set it right where I think it might look good using the y-axis. That's a good pan right there. And I'll do the same for the third clip because to me this doesn't really lend itself to an opening. So let's make it better. Right about here is more interesting. More action happening, and I personally would like that a lot better myself if I was viewing it. And speaking of this clip, something I'm noticing while we're watching it here Do you notice how grainy it looks? It seems like the settings on this camera were a little off when they were shooting this clip. So for the next task, I'm going to try to use the Skybox tools to see if I can salvage this clip or at least make it look a little more presentable. Let me show you how it's done.